And that's a great segue into our Periodicals Reading Challenge coming up after the new year, where there will be critical thinking questions.
Yeah.
What did you like about this? What did you wonder? Why did you choose this source? And one of our apps called Gale gives our students access to pretty much every periodical in the country online.
Yeah.
And I have brought back the newspapers, the print edition.
Nice.
So, sorry, a brief interruption. It's the Periodical Reading Challenge coming up next semester. Critical thinking will be involved, folks. And we talk about stories and where they originate. That's something that you need to look at, your generation. Our generation, I think we just took the news and that was it. We didn't really look into, okay, which side is this coming from? Is there an agenda? I think we trusted the news more. Nowadays, we look at the news with more scrutiny.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad that we do scrutinize information in the news more so now. I think we're still trying to sift through what is real and what's not real. Yeah. But I think it's good. I think the benefits of the way we receive information now is that there's so much information, but I think more people are in the know today versus the old school 5 o'clock news or the morning paper generation that we're kind of still.
Walter Cronkite.
That's right. We're still a part of. And you're right. We trusted that. But even that generation misled, right? We've misled people over the years about what's happened in society, and we've twisted and covered up in our own way. So I go back to because there's so much information, it might take more time, but the truth eventually finds its way out, right? People start to figure things out at some point, this is what was being told to me 3 months ago. Today it's a different story, so it might take a little bit more time. But I think the vast majority of people, again, regardless of what side of the political aisle, eventually are centrist and think of the truth does eventually all come out. It all does. So that's a good thing. But I think the one thing that we have to do a better job of today in society is when we disagree, having I like to call it productive or structured or appropriate type of discourse, right? So it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to when you disagree to flip out and punch someone in the face about it, right? We can sit there and go, okay, I hear your opinion, I hear your side. I'm gonna disagree with it. Here's why. And you give your valid points, and someone else might give their valid points. But I think we have to respectfully disagree and not be so. Again, it goes back to like being so angry and divisive about it. I think there are going to be topics that just because you disagree does not make that individual an evil demon. They might need to be educated more on why they're wrong. And I think as a society, and this is where kind of the social media thing too, right? Like we need to all do a better job of making sure that your points are rationally come across. And you know what, at the end of the day, we might just agree to disagree. And that's okay too. Like we have to go back to that feeling. And I think that's kind of where maybe our generation, Doc, has a little more like we just agree to disagree. Like I think of politics, like Democrats and Republicans can still sit down in a room together and agree to disagree and still break bread and get some legislation passed. It appears that today's political environment is when you disagree, you can't even be in the same room with one another. And
there's hardly any reaching across the aisle these days, which is sad.
Yeah, and it seems at the smallest level too. It's infiltrating even the most local politics, where that's the part that I think I've not seen that appears to be more and more unprecedented, even from local politics, from like local school boards to municipalities to now at the federal level. You see it even nationally, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, we can get to a point where we could, right, break bread and disagree on topics too, so.
Yeah, it would be nice to turn the clock back on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I feel like as a student's perspective, there are moments where you can sit down with somebody and break bread.
Yeah.
It's just when you get to know somebody, I can reason with you, I can't reason with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot less reasonable people now because we live in a day and age where you can argue with someone in Thailand
That's right.
and for like hours, days,
Yeah.
and you don't even know their real name.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I just think it's a lot less reasonable people
Yeah.
more than reasonable.
Yeah. And again, not to point the blame. It's not a blame thing, but access to people, access to information. Like the first time I realized is when my son was gaming and he's talking to people in Florida and different countries and he's playing like, I don't know, he's like Fortnite or something on PS, and I'm like sitting there going, man, he's talking to all kinds of people from all over. And here I thought it was just his friends from school when he was in middle school. Like, no, like he can talk to. And that's the part I'm like, wow, like, and then it goes back to the way we get information. We're getting people with their cell phones live feeding, streaming like a war going on in the background. And I'm like, it's mind blowing to think that it used to be a brave reporter with a big giant, camera on their shoulders running through the thing.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I mean, it could be a 7-year-old live streaming something. And it's like, so I think that's the part, like, there's so much information coming our way. It's like, oh my goodness, like it's kind of, you have to sift it out like one of those big sand sifters and sift out what's the right and what's the wrong and anybody can get one little nugget and take it and run with it, so that's the challenge, to sift through what's right and what's wrong nowadays,
Big challenge.
So, yeah, for sure.
All right. Eason, you want to get into some of the questions we had prepared here?
I will.
Fire away.
Yeah. All right. Our first question is going to be a bit of an easy one. What do you prefer to read?
Oh, wow. That is a great question because, so I will admit, when I'd like to unplug from the educational reading environment, I'm a little bit of a Star Wars nerd. So anything that's Star Wars related, right? So I'm trying to read the Thrawn series right now. So because for those Star Wars lovers out there know that Thrawn made an appearance in the Ahsoka show. So I'm trying to read through that right now. And I admit I like to kind of unplug from that. But because with my day job, there is a lot of like educational based reading that I find myself having to read or cover that's around leadership. I know the most recent book that I actually reread it again after going to a training because I hadn't read, and I like to reread some of my books. But the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Kids and Teens, and when I was a principal, an elementary principal, we implemented kind of the 7 habits, and Stephen Covey's what about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and a lot of Fortune 500 companies use it. I listened to him. I saw him at an event early summer, and even though I'm familiar with the 7 Habits, I just like, that's a good reread. So I reread it at the end of summer. That was my last educational one because most times I use those as reference materials, but that last, from an educational standpoint, was really good. But again, going back to it, my book nerdness of Star Wars, I'm kind of trying to chip through that to get some more background on the old General Thrawn there, Admiral Thrawn. I'm sorry. Yeah. So
science fiction is your
oh yeah, I love it.
genre of choice.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can't get enough of anything science fiction-y. What amazes me in the science fiction world now is that science fiction is slowly becoming reality because anytime I watch a video of like the way this robot technology is now and the influence of AI, I'm sitting there like, oh my God, it used to be like when I was 16, I'd watch these sci-fi movies and go like, that's never going to happen. Right now you see these robots doing backflips. Like, you ever watch any Boston Dynamics video? You ever heard of Boston Dynamics? Easton, no. Oh my Lord. I need you to, after this, Google search Boston Dynamics. They are a robot company, of course, out of Boston. They've started 7-8 years ago with like a humanoid robot, basically walking, shake, to now this robot could actually be armed with a weapon, does parkour. You know what parkour is?
Yeah.
Like American Ninja Warrior type stuff, flips and tricks, and I'm sitting there watching these videos going, oh my God, like This is like the reality. These people, I know they weren't designed to be soldiers, but these robots look like they could be soldiers. So if you've not seen it yet, you gotta, I'm telling you, people that have watched it, like some of my friends, every time I watch it, because I was a big fan of the Terminator movies and like if you know the whole premise of Terminator and like basically AI takes over, right? If you've not watched it, Easton, it's like, yeah. So you're aware of Skynet, the whole thing. So now when you watch these videos of these robots doing flips and tricks and stuff like that, you're like, oh my God, like this could, I mean, but again, this is my sci-fi brain going, you know, but it's interesting and scary at the same time. But I encourage you just to watch a little clip of it. It'll blow you away. It really will. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book or genre?
My favorite genre is actually nonfiction.
Oh.
Sports books, preferably
yeah.
baseball.
Of course. Yes. No. Who doesn't love that, right? I love a good sports book myself.
But I like the classics. I like Steinbeck, F. Scott Fitzgerald, things like that. And we have right behind us here the historical fiction and the classic fiction section. So, yeah, I'd say that's probably my genre. How about you?
Look at that, Easton. I'm going to show you. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's the robot. No. I couldn't help, but I had to show you right away. That's the robot doing parkour right there.
Wow.
You know what? I did see this on social media.
People think that's fake, and it's not. It's real. Look at that thing.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's jumping. It's almost like a, you ever heard of a Gundam?
Yeah, uh-huh.
It's almost like one of those, but it's by itself.
Yeah. So this thing, it's about 5'9", weighs about 150, 60 pounds. Yep. So, and it's designed, and they have robot dogs. So the military's starting to use those dogs as to like diffuse send those dogs in that are harnessed with weaponry. I mean, it sounds like something you write out of a book. And then that as well, there's other prototypes where they have those designed with weapons, and they have them programmed where they know what to shoot and what not to shoot. So they have this company has, you can go on social media and keep going down the rabbit's hole, and you'll see videos of these things armed, and you'll have soldiers that are in front of them, they won't shoot, and then they'll move out of the way, and then they'll shoot their target and all that stuff. And I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness gracious. So it's like sci-fi becomes reality.
Wow.
When you start to look at that stuff.
I can't believe they're doing backflips.
Oh yeah, it's trust me, I know. It was mind-blowing when I first saw it a couple years ago, and I was like, is this someone messing with me? And then I'm like, no, this is like real deal. Yeah.
But
crazy.
Back to your question.
Yes.
Well, in my time, we don't really read books. We read subtitles.
That's right.
So,
this is true. Yeah.
But I have read a couple books back in my time.
In your time.
In
yes,
my
sir.
time.
Yeah.
You ever heard of Merlin's Missions?
No, I have not. No.
It's a little book, little starter beginner's
Yeah.
book I used to read when I was young.
Sweet.
Well, I still am. But
Yeah.
When I was younger.
Younger.
It's just about two kids being sent on a mission
Yeah.
by the Wizard Merlin. I'm
Oh,
sure we
okay,
all
cool.
know.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just little fun, silly things. It was probably my first introduction to books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I didn't really like reading because back in third, fourth, we
Sure.
would always have those reading logs
I
that
know,
you have to
I
sign
know,
out,
yeah.
mandatory reading.
Yeah.
I wasn't really about it, but that was probably my first book series I read.
That's awesome.
Like by myself.
Well, it's. I think the one thing, if you find something you're interested in, and go with it. I think the important thing is, and you brought up, like, for us educators, like you said something there that kind of piques our educational interest, because the one thing that I think we've done a better job, but we need to continue to strive to do a better job for, is just read, but read what interests you. Pick something that interests you and go with it, because the one thing that I've discovered is that, and I didn't discover it till later in life, because I was a struggling reader when I was a kid, because English was like my third language growing up, but reading tells you so much more than any video, any movie, any TV series. Like, you can watch the greatest TV series ever invented that are hours an episode. It'll never give you everything than what a book gives you.